The NFL draft is now less than a week away, and Matt and I are here with our number 8 and our number 7 picks in this year's draft. Go catch out the previous episode, A Simple Question, where Matt and I talked through the number 10, number 9 overall picks in this NFL draft. But Matt, let's start here with the number 8 overall pick that goes to the Atlanta Falcons. Assuming they don't trade out of it, who do you like the Falcons selecting with the number 8 pick here?
Yeah, the Falcons can go a lot of different routes, and that was kind of the issue with trying to figure out who I thought they would go. I could see them going wide receiver. I could see them going with a quarterback, with a lineman, something. Basically, they need somebody at every position, so choosing one is interesting. But I think they're going to go Travon Walker here. I think it's always solid to go get, when you're in a kind of a rebuilding mode, it's always smart to go get a guy that can go after the pass rusher, and in a division where you're going to have to go after Tom Brady, it's smart to have somebody who can do that. Travon Walker has really risen in draft stock recently. I mean, This is a guy that had 37 total tackles, 6 sacks, 7.5 tackles for loss, but then you talk about like a 4.51 40 time, just absolutely a monster. I think that he's a great guy to help with rebuilding your defense. And so I think that Atlanta goes there and does that, because even though they could get a quarterback, I think they might be looking at next year's draft to go for quarterback. Or maybe they see something in Mariota where they could have a few years with him at quarterback until they find a guy that they really like.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think anytime you can draft anybody from Georgia's defense this past season, you probably got yourself a good player.
Yeah.
Travon Walker obviously fits that bill. I honestly think, though, that the Atlanta Falcons draft their quarterback of the future in this draft at number 8 overall in Malik Willis. Obviously, the Falcons traded away Matt Ryan this offseason, brought in Marcus Mariota to kind of be their starter. And I don't think that he's their long-term answer at the quarterback, although I do like Marcus Mariota, and I do like that fit there in Atlanta back with his former coach, Arthur Smith. But Mariota can be the perfect kind of bridge quarterback for Malik Willis to allow him to get his feet wet at the next level. I've said multiple times on this platform that I think Malik Willis is the only quarterback that has legit superstar potential in this draft class, in this quarterback class. But, he's not necessarily a quarterback that you would ideally start on day one. Marcus Mariota will be able to provide that and kind of be that veteran, provide that leadership for Malik Willis. And obviously, there's not a lot of skill position-wise on the Atlanta Falcons offense right now at this moment. So I honestly think that's kind of the best spot for a kind of a dual threat, do-it-all quarterback. And again, my previous comparison for Malik Willis was Cam Newton, who was in a similar situation. He didn't have great running backs, receivers around him, but if you have kind of that 235-pound quarterback with a big arm who can use his legs, that can be your offensive identity. And I think that's kind of the perfect spot. I think Falcons owner Arthur Blank might be getting some Mike Vick kind of flashbacks of Malik Willis. He might want to try to, go down that rabbit hole again. But I think Malik Willis is a great fit in Atlanta, and I think that's where he lands. Huh? But let's go on to the next pick, though. Number 7, that belongs to the New York Football Giants. What do you think the Giants do at number 7 here?
I think the Giants go secondary. I think they go with Stingley Jr. out of LSU. I think that he's going to be the first DB taken over Sauce Gardner. This is a guy that, although he hasn't finished strong because of COVID year, then this year was a little lackluster, but this is a guy that came in as a freshman and just dominated. Yeah. And not to mention, you think about some of the guys he would have to go up against in practice: Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. There's some great receivers that have come out of LSU, and he had to cover all of them. This is a guy that has the ability to be a lockdown number 1 cornerback, I think. And so I think the Giants, who need to address that defense and are trying to do not a full rebuild, but a pivot, they have weapons on offense. And I think that with their 5th pick, they're probably going to go offense or offensive line. So I think it makes sense to address the defense with your second top 10 pick. And Stingley Jr. is that guy.
I love Stingley, but I'm curious. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here. Why do you prefer Stingley over Sauce Gardner, who is, a projected top 10, 15 type pick, also at that cornerback position?
I totally get it. And I mean, I think part of it is definitely the pedigree. And also you look at that overall season he had as a freshman going into the SEC and going up against SEC competition.
Yep.
I think that weighs a little bit more, but it's basically, and that's the cool thing about this draft, is it's like most of the positions you're going with 1A, 1B rather than like a clear 1 or 2. And so I get why people might want to go with Gardner over Stingley. I just think Stingley is a little bit better at this point.
That makes sense. And they're both going to be hell of players in the next level. And I think it's very eerily similar to last season's draft. Also at the cornerback position, Patrick Surtain II, J.C. Horn, both great players. So I agree with you there. I picked Surtain. I gave Surtain the edge last year for the same reason you gave Stingley the edge this year, that pedigree. Obviously, Surtain went to Alabama, played against all the Alabama great receivers that have come out of there the last few years in the SEC. Kind of the same deal with Stingley, so I'm with you on that. But again, both Stingley and Sauce will be hell of a pros. But
absolutely.
I think the Giants also kind of address their secondary at a different position, though. I think the Giants will select Kyle Hamilton here with the number 7 pick, the safety out of Notre Dame. This is a dude whose draft stock has fallen recently since he ran a 4.59 40 at the combine. For whatever reason, people thought that he would be a little bit faster than that, but nonetheless, this is a dude who NFL defenses need. Versatile, a big dude at 6'4", 220 pounds or so, can fly sideline to sideline, is versatile. Like I mentioned, he can cover tight ends, he can play in the box, he can rush the passer, get his hands on the ball, interceptions, tip balls, all that type of stuff. So I think, his playmaking ability and just, his versatility is going to bring something to the Giants defense that they haven't really had, something that they really need. And also, too, I liken him to a Justin Simmons. Obviously, the Broncos safety, who the Broncos just signed to a massive contract last year. He's a top 5 safety in the league. I kind of see that comparison. So I really like Kyle Hamilton. I think he's one of the best defensive players in this draft. Probably the best defensive player in this draft who isn't, an interior defensive lineman or a pass rusher.
No, I completely agree. I love Hamilton, which is why I have him going earlier in my draft. So tune into a later episode where I tell you where I think he's going to go.
Yeah.
But Hamilton is absolutely a guy that you can build your secondary around. And like you said, I like the Simmons comparison. And also, you talk about that height and that build. The tight ends are a new and big issue in the NFL as far as that, and you want a guy that can kind of handle it. And I think he would be great in those situations. And then also he's big enough to where if you want him to come up and play near the line, he's a guy that can help you as a safety stopping on in run defense. And so it's going to be so exciting. Like you said, versatility. And also Notre Dame, I think you talk about a little bit about a pedigree. And also this is a guy that's going to be a leader in your locker room.
Yes.
And that's what you want out of your 100%. Safety. You want a guy that's going to be a leader that can rally a defense. And for teams that are trying to rebuild, it's exactly what you're looking for.
Yep, he was a team captain at Notre Dame, and you mentioned it. Just a hell of a leader, somebody who can be the leader, the face of your defense. And it's for a city and for a franchise like the New York Giants, that's something that they desperately need on that side of the ball with a new head coach and whatnot. So I love Kyle Hamilton and his prospects with the Giants. I think the Giants, they have 2 picks in the top 10. I think they kind of address that offensive line with that first pick. Go ahead and get Kyle Hamilton at number 7 overall. But we can't wait to see how this one shakes out. Catch us on next week's episode, A Simple Question, where we kind of talk to number 6, number 5 overall picks in the NFL draft. But until then, for Scott Proctor and Matt Morris, we'll see you then.